Something you may know about me and how I'm wired is that I'm a really competitive person. I like to be the best at things, and when I do things, I like to do them well. I don't really try certain new things or new sports because I know I won't be good at them, so I don't do them. I played baseball my whole life from age 4 to age 22, and when I was in college, I had some coaches that were giving us their own philosophy. Old school is how I would categorize it. They had the old school way of playing, and I was in college and there was a lot of research and stuff coming out about the new school. And so going through those college days, I wanted to be better. I wanted to be great. I didn't want to just be as good as I was. I was on a constant pursuit for more, for greatness, for throwing harder, for having better pitches, for having more wins, for having a lower ERA, all of these things. And growing up, I got to watch a lot of different players. Some names that you may or may not recognize: Pedro Martinez, Barry Bonds, Ken Griffey Jr., Mark McGwire, Jim Edmonds, Pudge. He just gets one name. Craig Biggio, Randy Johnson, Greg Maddux. I mean, these are just some absolute greats, Hall of Fame players. And today's baseball has a lot of great names too. Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Judge, Paul Skeens, Clayton Kershaw. I mean, more future Hall of Famers. But over the years, I kind of had this inkling, like I said earlier, where I was like, man, I think there's something to this new school of research. I think there's something there. And so I had this thought one day. It felt more profound than it sounds. If you want to be great, do what the greats do. And for me, I was watching this film breakdown of these different pitchers and these different hitters and what their shoulders do and what their hips do and all these different things. They have all these different little tweaks and gizmos and gadgets that they use. But all of the great ones do the same thing at a certain point in their pitch or in their swing. There's a lot of things before and after that might look different, but all of the great ones do the exact same thing in this short little span of their mechanics. And so for me, I said, I need to dial that in. Like I see this great thing that they do. I see the great thing. I think I can do that. So I'm going to try my best to do it. And that's all that mattered. My focus was solely on that. And it ruffled feathers because coaches didn't like that I was doing that, and other players thought it was unconventional. And you know what? They were right. Anytime a new school, new ideology, new theory comes in, well, of course it's going to look unconventional because it's new. And not to ruffle any feathers, but as you know, I'm a big baseball fan. I stand by the fact that hitting a baseball is the hardest thing in all of professional sports. We can argue about that later. But once I changed my mindset from whatever it was, just being complacent, being good enough, to I want to do what the greats do, my entire athletic life changed. I kept my sole focus, my whole purpose in baseball was to conquer this thing. And actually, this is kind of relevant to the series that we're going through. As you know, we're going through a series on King Hezekiah. And Hezekiah, admittedly, I didn't know a ton about him before this series started. You may not even know how to spell his name. It's kind of weird. But Hezekiah, he was one of the few kings of Judah. And his dad was a king, and his dad was a really bad dude, like a really, really horrible, wicked guy. King Hezekiah is written about all over the Bible in 2 Chronicles and 2 Kings about how he was the best king that Judah had ever seen, ever, compared to all the ones before him and the ones after him. Surprisingly, in Israel, which is known as kind of like the God's home, essentially, other than Chick-fil-A, that's a great place too. But Israel and God tend to go together. I was really surprised to find out that King Hezekiah was really like the only king that was actually a Christian. All these other kings were just awful men, like horrible, awful, destructive men, one of them being his own father. So his father's done with his rule and reign. Hezekiah comes in, and like I was talking about earlier with this one focus, Hezekiah came in with his one focus. His one focus was actually about idol worship. He came into this new rule and reign. He had all the authority in this area of Israel, and he said there is way too much idolatry, way too much pagan worship, way too much false gods, way too much of these man-made altars and these bronze things, just way too much. And he said, one is too many. And so he came in and he completely destroyed all of it. Cutthroat, like not even a thought about it. It was idol, pagan, false god, altar, not about our Lord. Get rid of it, it's gone. So literally, physically breaking down man-made temples that were thrown up for worshiping false gods. Complete destruction. He didn't care about people's feelings about it. He didn't care about their emotions about it. He didn't care about all the money that went into paying for it, to build it, and the people he had to hire to tear it down. He didn't care about all that. He said, I care about our people's souls. And this is why idolatry is so important. I care about people's souls. And the idolatry that these people were practicing and what we see in today's society is a huge deal. It claims to care about your soul, but it actually doesn't and can't. Hezekiah knew the devastation that would come from worshiping these false gods, not just because he was a Christian and he knew the truth, but he watched 20-something years of his dad's reign and all of the false gods and the pagan worship and the idolatry. Now, Hezekiah was 25 when he became king. I can't imagine having any sort of rule or reign when I was 25. So more power to him. But these idols, what is an idol? Well, if you know John Piper, he's a world-renowned Christian author, speaker, pastor, and he wrote a book called Desiring God, and in it he talks about a whole bunch of different things, one of which is idolatry. He says anything that successfully competes with your love for God is an idol. What's an idol? Anything that successfully competes with your love for God. So it doesn't have to be a ritual. It doesn't have to just be a false god. It could literally be a friend that you idolize. And instead of going to the Lord, you go to them. It could be horoscopes and astrology because they claim to know everything about you based on when you were born. And then it's assigned to you some sort of mythological animal. It could be an overpacked schedule because staying busy makes you feel good. When in reality, what you're doing is you're running from the problems that you don't have time for because you're too busy. It could also be an involvement in sports that's unhealthy, or in extracurriculars that's too much because it prevents you from going to church. It prevents you from spending time with God. It could be the pursuit of vacations and experiences because you think that they are going to bring you rest. Now, other than horoscopes and astrology, because that's bad, all the other things that I said are not bad in and of themselves. Going on vacation is great. Going to concerts is great. Buying things at the store is great. Hanging out with your friends is great. Being busy can be good. All those things are not bad in and of themselves. But John Piper says that anything, whether it's good or bad, anything that successfully competes with your love for God is an idol. And this is why Hezekiah came into his rule and reign and said, I am going to destroy anything that competes with your love for God. And he did this not because he was an authoritarian, not because he was a tyrant, not because of ego and pride. He did this because he said, I know what you need for your soul. And I watched my father destroy people's souls with encouraging and condoning idolatry, false gods, and pagan worship. Jesus says in Matthew chapter 11, come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest. What I find with idolatry, whether it's in my own life, reading about it, seeing it in the life of others, what I find is actually if people just took time to rest, the idolatry in humanity would plummet. And I think it's because when people run to idols, they're actually running to them because they don't have peace. They have a hard time sitting and saying, I'm going to go talk to God about my problems because then I have to face my problems. Or maybe they want to go on all these different vacations and all these experiences because they think it's going to make them feel better about the problems that they have. And so the time away from it on that 1-week trip is going to make it all better. But actually what happens is when you come home from that, that problem is still sitting there. When you go to Jesus with your problems, when you go to Jesus for rest, when you go to Jesus for peace, when you go to Jesus and you say, this is the thing I'm dealing with, at the very least, if he doesn't remove the idol from your life, or if he doesn't fix the problem, when you go back to that situation, to that problem, you're not alone. You're not approaching it alone. You're going arm in arm, hand in hand with somebody who can do something about it. And so I want you to think about this. Think about the idols that might be in your life. Think about the things that maybe have come to mind for you right now during this small group, while you're watching this video. What are the things that have come to mind to you where you've said, oh, maybe that's what it is? And maybe you're sitting there thinking like, no, that's not it. And you're pushing away the conviction and you're convincing yourself, no, that's not it. Maybe that's God actually nudging you and saying, hey, friend, son, daughter, maybe you need to get rid of this thing. And so my encouragement to you is to go to him first. Ask him, pray about it, bring it to him. Second, talk to your pastor, talk to your mentor, talk to somebody you trust. Say, what do you think about this? And then third, consider the Hezekiah approach. Destroy it, cut it off, get rid of it, remove it from your home. Try it out. You never know what God can do.